I'm going to call the meeting to order. Clerk, if you would please open the roll for attendance.
Delegate Carr. Murphy? I think I saw your name there. Let's see. That's Boulevard. Carr.
All right. That's a quorum, right?
That's a quorum.
All right. All right, we have a quorum. Call this meeting to order. We're going to take up all the landlord-tenant bills in Block 1 and then move on to the remainder of the bills in the subcommittee in Block 2. And so I'd like to take up Delegate Price's bill. If you want to come up and...
Do you want to do those two strikes?
We'll do it in just a sec. Present HB 802.
Okay. 802. Perfect. Mr. Chairman and members, I do have a substitute to 802.
Is there a motion on the substitute?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of adopting the substitute, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Substitutes before us. Delegate Price.
Yes, and Mr. Chairman, I see your docket before you, so I won't belabor some of these issues, but some of us have been working on inexcusable living conditions for quite a while, and you've seen some of the local cities here, areas here in Richmond, but also in Newport News and Hampton. And I have some residents in the district that I serve who even invited me into their home so that I could witness, and it was deplorable, honestly. And it was something that you nor I would allow to happen in our living space, and so I wanted to make sure that we voiced their concerns. But while this isn't the majority of landlords, there are some that have been documented as trends of problematic. And so in these instances, the tenants feel helpless, and they put in numerous work requests just to have it glossed over. And it's gotten so bad that some of them even move their families into motels, but they can't afford the motels and the rent. And then codes compliance goes out. They issue the citations, but then it's unclear if they can enforce anything other than the limited capacity in code to fine the landlord or condemn the property. But in a lot of cases, they don't want to condemn the property because there is a lack of other housing, and then you end up increasing those that are experiencing homelessness. So this bill would empower localities to file suit against slumlords, to force compliance with the health and safety standards of the VRLTA, which can help get the actual resolution that protects the tenants and improves the conditions. By granting the localities the authority to enforce the health and safety provisions, they can help protect the communities they serve.
Okay, while we're waiting for the substitute to post, are there any questions from the committee at this point? Delegate Price, can you help us understand from the original text to the substitute what exactly your new substitute does from the original version?
Well, one, it got me a little bit more support from some organizations, but I would say that this was a consensus bill that we worked with a lot of the stakeholders to get, and I think it clarified what the duties and powers were of the locality to make sure that all parties involved understood what they can and can't do.
Okay, any questions from the committee? All right, anyone here in person to speak in favor of the bill? This could be a long day, so let's try to keep our remarks succinct and state your position clearly. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Christy Marrow with the Virginia Poverty Law Center. We strongly support the bill. Thank Delegate Price for bringing it, and thank all the stakeholders for working with us. And as Delegate Price said, we have seen in Richmond, in Newport News, and in other parts of the state, large apartment complexes that have problems like mold, infestation of roaches, et cetera, that go unfixed for months or sometimes years. With this bill, if it is enacted into law, localities will be able to take greater steps to help tenants and to make sure that the members of their communities are living in safe and healthy environments. So we ask you to please vote yes on this.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Bisma Ahmed with the Apartment and Office Building Association and the Virginia Apartment Management Association. We support the bill.
Thank you. Is there anyone here opposed to the bill? I think we have some members of the public that are here virtually. If we could please call the first speaker in support of the bill. This is for 802 for anybody that's on the virtual queue.
Starts here and goes to the next page.
Thanks.
I think that's me, Mr. Chair, because I've just been unmuted.
Go ahead, Mr. Macbeth.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My name is Colin Macbeth, and I'm here representing the Arlington branch of the NAACP. We strongly support HB 802. Many residents, especially low-income residents, face significant barriers to enforcing tenant rights under the Virginia Residential Landlord-Tenant Act, including lack of access to an attorney, lack of understanding of the law and our criminal justice system, as well as apprehension to engage with the criminal justice system because of legal status or other concerns that they might have. Tenants are often at a disadvantage when they seek to enforce their rights to live in safe and healthy housing because their landlord or property owner has access to more financial resources and legal representation than they do. HB 802 allows tenants to work with the local governments to fairly enforce their existing rights. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the rest of those in the virtual queue, we're going to have our clerk or our staff here in the office call you by name so we don't all come at once. And Jordan, if you would call the next speaker, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So our next speaker is going to be Ms. Monica Sarmiento, if she is here.
And if you agree with the previous testimony, just state your position and that you agree with that position, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Monica Sarmiento, and I'm the Executive Director of the Virginia Coalition for Migrant Rights. On behalf of our 45-member organization coalition, we fully support this bill.
Thank you.
Nicole Merlin.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, my name is Nicole Merlin, and I'm a commissioner on Arlington's Tenant Landlord Commission, where we've been working to address how to respond to poor living conditions at the local level, and I'm here to strongly support the bill. In a story of my own, I'm someone with good income, active involvement in housing policy in my community, and despite all of that knowledge and privilege in the past, I was even forced to lose my security deposit of $6,000 and move after my landlord refused to provide running and hot water for 2 months. After losing water, the county came and they said that code enforcement couldn't do anything. I called the county and the county said that there was nothing they can do and they actually wouldn't even recommend me go get a lawyer because it would cost almost as much as my security deposit. So all of that, I had the law broken against me. I have all the tools that I should in order to get that remedied, and I still couldn't. Now, if you're an affordable housing dweller, your situation isn't even as privileged as mine. And we see that in Arlington County with residents of Toronto. This is not something that would add any new restrictions to living standards. It would simply just allow authority to local governments to implement current law. So,
Thank you, Ms. Merlin. I appreciate your testimony. Jordan, if you could call the next speaker.
Mr. Mukherjee.
All right, sir, you're off mute. Please go ahead.
Yes, my name is Kirit Mukherjee. I'm a longtime tenant representative in the Arlington Tenant Landlord Commission. I strongly support this measure. The problem of aging properties, both in Arlington and across the Commonwealth, is too important, and we have to protect tenants in this situation. So I strongly support previous comments.
Thank you, sir.
House Bill 802.
Thank you. Jordan?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that is all.
Okay. Is there anyone on the virtual queue to speak against the bill?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Seeing none, back to members of the committee. The substitute is posted. If you have any questions of Delegate Price, now would be a good time. Seeing none, Delegate Price, you have the final word.
I hope you'll support the bill.
All right. Thank you. Is there a motion?
Move to report.
All right.
The substitute.
There's been a motion and a second to report the substitute. Clerk, if you would please open the roll.
Delegate Carr. Delegate Carr.
Aye.
All right. That bill reports with a substitute 6-0. Delegate Price, your next bill, HB 803, if you'd please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. And in the same vein, Mr. Chairman and members, we are working to help those that really need us. And so I will send you my dissertation on how evictions are bad by email. But basically, I do want to point out that the total eviction filings in the third quarter of 2019 were approximately 40,000 statewide. And that was after we had enacted the extended right of redemption, the shortening of the life and eviction order, the elimination of oral leases, and establishing 4 eviction diversion programs. But most of these provisions help the tenant after the eviction process has already been started. Now, after we put together the Virginia Rent Relief Funding Program, the budget language that required landlords to give payment plans and to work through the rent relief, the 14-day pay or quit, and like I said, the payment plans, the total eviction filings for the third quarter of 2021 were approximately 9,000 statewide. And this is the intentional bipartisan work that we've been doing actually since 2018, when we got embarrassed in the national news as being one of the top states for the number of evictions. But sadly, Mr. Chairman and members, a lot of those provisions are expiring this summer. And so what House Bill 803 seeks to do is to permanently change the pay or quit time frame from 5 days to 14. And here's a real life example. The difference in the 5 to 14 days is for some of these families to get to their next check, especially those whose hours have been cut because of the pandemic. But even eviction prevention is important before and after a pandemic. And so that's what this bill seeks to do. And I hope you will support trying to help more Virginia families stay housed and not return to those previous numbers that were so embarrassing.
Thank you, Delegate Price. Are there any questions from the committee members? All
yes,
right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Delegate Carr, please go ahead. You're off mute. You're off mute. We can hear you. Delegate Carr, did you have a question? All right, she's off mute. We'll go to anyone in person here to speak in favor of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Christy Marrow with the Virginia Poverty Law Center, and I know there are a lot of speakers and not a lot of time. We obviously strongly support this measure. We think it is one of the most important things you can do to continue to keep our eviction numbers down. And I just want to, in anticipation of some of the arguments you may hear from some folks who are not in favor of this bill, I just want to point out that allowing tenants an additional 9 days to pay their late rent does not put any additional debt on those tenants. As soon as that rent is late, the landlord can, and usually does, understandably, charge a 10% late fee. The landlord cannot charge any greater fee than that, regardless of whether the tenant pays 5 days later or 9 or 14 days later. This bill actually helps tenants pay their rent, avoid going to court, and avoid accruing the additional fees and debt that court brings in court costs and attorney's fees. So we ask you to please vote yes on this very important bill.
Thank you, Ms. Marr. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Brian Kozel, Executive Director of the Virginia Housing Alliance. For the sake of brevity, we echo Christie's sentiments, and our members support this bill.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. My name is Brian Moorfield. I'm the Director of Research and Policy at Housing Opportunities Made Equal. We support the bill for the same reasons that you've just heard, but also because evictions have public costs. Recent research from VCU's RVA Eviction Lab shows that public costs of evictions range between $7,000 to $18,000, and those are related to social services, healthcare, and law enforcement. So any measure that helps us to avoid unnecessary evictions will also have major effects reducing costs for the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the bill?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Bisma Ahmed with the Apartment and Office Building Association. While we understand the intent of the bill and it made sense in the beginning of the pandemic, in 2020 we took a lot of measures, including amending the Virginia statute on rights of redemption, basically to say a tenant can come 48 hours before a scheduled eviction and pay in full and wipe the slate clean without anything on their record, as well as extending this timeline. Basically, if a tenant isn't able to pay in full, if they can't afford their unit, that's putting them in additional debt, higher financial judgment when they're looking for future housing. So we ask that you oppose the bill, please.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Tommy Herbert with the Virginia Apartment Management Association. We associate ourselves with AOBA and ask your opposition to the bill, please.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Marla Posey. I am a property management professional here in the state of Virginia, and I specialize in both affordable housing and market rate housing. I associate myself with the folks from VAMA and AOBA and oppose this bill strongly.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Amy Gutierrez, and I work with Drucker and Falk out of Lynchburg. I also agree with everything that VAMA has said, and I strongly oppose House Bill 803.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Zanul Abedin, and I'm a resident of Prince William County. I drove down today to the Capitol for the first time to speak on two bills. One of them is this bill. My family is a small-scale housing provider, and I wanted to come here and say that extending the pay or quit notice from 5 to 14 days is a very dangerous policy to implement. I understand the intention of the policy, but the unlimited right of redemption put in place during the pandemic gives a tenant about 118 days to get current on rent without penalty. Do not extend the court process unnecessarily, as it really hurts our industry, which has been hurting for the past 2 years. This policy does not benefit the tenant nor the housing provider. So for that reason, I ask that you please oppose this very dangerous bill. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome to the Capitol. Glad you're here. Next speaker, please.
Mr. Chairman, Randy Grumbine. I represent the Virginia Manufactured Modular Housing Association. My members resist extending the stay from 5 days to 14 days. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Tyler Craddock, Manufactured Housing Communities of Virginia, and we oppose the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have a few on the virtual queue. Jordan, if you can help me work through on HB 803. And please keep your remarks brief for any of those that are participating virtually. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. First, again, is Ms. Sarmiento.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Adding an additional 9 days for so many Virginians who are already living paycheck to paycheck would absolutely stop a lot of the emotional damage that happens through families that suffer through eviction. On behalf of the Virginia Coalition for Immigrant Rights, we fully support this bill and hope you vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keisha Miller. You're on mute, Ms. Miller.
Thank you. Sorry about that. My name is Keisha, and I'm from Loudoun County. I support the bill. I'm a single mother of two. I've lived in Loudoun for about 20 years, and supporting this bill actually helped us out. I'm a single mom of two, and we would have been homeless had it not been for the 14-day notice. Although I did not wait until the last minute looking for resources, that 14-day notice actually helped in order for me to find the resources and find the money to pay my rent. I also am a social worker, and in my line of work, we help with rental and utility assistance. And I've seen plenty of clients come in with a 14-day notice, and it's been extremely helpful for the clients that we serve.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. And for the rest of the speakers, if you could just state your position on the bill. I think we understand the issue and what this bill does, and so if you could just help us understand where you are. And Jordan, if you would call the next speaker.
Mr. Mukherjee.
Yes, I support the bill, and I associate myself with the remarks of the Virginia Poverty Law Center. I believe we are still in a pandemic crisis, whether officially or not. And we should continue.
Thank you, sir. Jordan, if you call the next speaker.
Ms. Lewis.
Hi, my name is Mariko. I'm the Housing Policy Analyst at New Virginia Majority. I support this bill, and I did want to rebut some of the opposition points if possible. The first thing I wanted to rebut is even if an eviction is filed, but the eviction does not end up occurring, that filing actually can be used against tenants in the future, despite what someone said previously. Additionally, 4 out of 5 of Virginia's surrounding states have higher pay or quit time periods than Virginia, and this will really support tenants and doesn't seem like a huge burden on landlords. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Ms. Larkin.
Ms. Larkin, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Delaney. I'm testifying in support of the bill. I'm with Tidewater Tenants' Rights. If the intent of the pay or quit notice is to give tenants adequate time, they need time to get a paycheck in between. 5 days, you do not get a paycheck. 14 days, you do get a paycheck. We urge you to vote yes on HB 803.
Thank you. Mr. Macbeth.
Thank you. My name is Cal Macbeth again, and I'm with the Arlington branch of the NAACP. We strongly support HB 803 and urge you to as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Espinoza.
Thank you. My name is Gustavo. I'm a Charlottesville renter speaking in strong support of HB 803. I've witnessed these extra 9 days make a real positive difference in my neighbors' lives. With many protections set to expire this summer, effectively cutting the process's length in half, landlord concerns about a long eviction process are overstated. This 14-day pay or quit may be the last thing standing between many tenants and an otherwise avoidable eviction. I urge you to support HB 803. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Carpenter.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to address this committee. My name is Nancy Carpenter. I work at the Haven in Charlottesville, which is a day shelter and resource center, and I am the administrator of the Homeless Prevention Program, which seeks to assist those individuals or families who are at risk of falling into our homeless system of care. I certainly support HB 803, support what the other commenters have said, but for me, this is an issue about children. This is about children. This is about the ability to do well scholastically, the ability to do well emotionally, depends on having a stable home. And this bill allows their caregivers, their parents as tenants to be able to pay their full rent without any other accumulating charges. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes the testament in support.
Okay, any in opposition on the virtual queue?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. First, Mr. Reyes.
Mr. Chairman and member of the committee, my name is Rice. I'm a small housing provider in Richmond. I was very alarmed when I heard about this concept. The pandemic has hurt this industry in so many ways, including small property owner like myself. This bill would alarmingly extend the court process in an extreme way when there are already other measures to help tenants who are in this scenario. Also, if a tenant isn't able to afford their housing and you extend the process, they are accumulating more debt that isn't going to go away.
Mr. Reyes, thank you for your testimony. And you're in support of the bill or against the bill?
I am against the bill.
All right, thank you for that. Jordan, if you call the next speaker.
Mr. Karimi.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Hi, Mr. Chairman. How you doing? And members of the committee. My name is Ace Karimi. I'm a resident here in Fairfax County, Virginia. Also, in conjunction to the bill, I do say that I'm against it, just for 2 quick reasons. One, I do believe that we are training people the wrong way currently to take as much time as they need to instead of having more urgency. Unemployment is at a high. You know, a lot of people have the ability to pay, but they're choosing not to pay because more and more incentives for time are given as opposed to applying for government assistance. I think if we motivate people to be urgent about these decisions when it comes to the rent, I do believe that it would make a difference in training them the proper way to take advantage of the rent.
Thank you. Next
Mr.
speaker.
Dix.
This is Chip Dix on behalf of the Northern Virginia Apartment Association, and we oppose the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Dix. Any questions of the committee at this point? Thank you, Delegate Price. You have the final word.
Yeah, I mean, I would even entertain an amendment for extension, but I feel like the same flawed arguments would be given. We have not seen this Armageddon scenario happen while we've been under this provision during the pandemic. And just to reiterate, the ROR provision is after an eviction has hit the record, and it includes all of the court's fees, fines, sheriff's fees, which makes it exponentially more. So the argument of that, using that to protect the tenant, just doesn't hit. So I hope you will support the bill.
Thank you. Is there a motion from the committee?
A substitute motion. Lay on the table.
There's been a substitute motion to lay the bill on the table and seconded. Clerk, if you please open the roll. Let's record a vote.
Delegate Carr. Delegate Carr, are you there?
Delegate Carr, would you like to vote? All right, that bill is laid on the table on a vote of 4-1. And Delegate Price, you have another bill in this block, 804, if you'd like to go ahead with that bill.
Sure. So we've talked about eviction prevention and we've talked about living standards. I would like to now talk about housing affordability as part of the housing crisis. And one of the things that is rarely talked about is the cost for applying for housing. And I have a substitute. Sorry.
Is there a motion on the
Let's
substitute?
start there.
It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of adopting the substitute, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Substitutes before us. If you could help us understand what the difference is from your introduced bill.
Sure. My introduced bill attempted to create an alternative process for applying for rental properties that would cut down on multiple application fees. The substitute takes a smaller but important step forward by creating transparency in the application process. So basically, the tenant would know more information about whether or not they should choose to spend their application fee there prior to actually doing it. We had one example where someone that attended a Newport News housing outreach event had paid $700 in non-refundable application fees and still could not find a place to live. And so this requires landlords to disclose their tenant screening policies up front. Also requires landlords to disclose the amount of the non-refundable application fees and deposits that the tenant must pay in order to apply and secure the unit. And then with greater transparency, tenants can make a more informed decision.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee on this bill? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak in favor of the bill?
Hi, Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee. Erin Barton with the Realtors. Have worked closely with the delegate on this bill. I want to thank her for listening to all of our concerns and taking them into account, and we do support the bill.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Bisma Ahmed with the Apartment and Office Building Association and the Virginia Apartment Management Association. And we thank the delegate for working with us, and we support the bill.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Christy Merrow with the Virginia Poverty Law Center. We thank all the stakeholders and, of course, Delegate Price for working together on this bill, and we strongly support it.
Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the bill? Okay, we're going to move to the virtual queue. And again, for anybody listening on the virtual queue, for brevity, if you could just state your position on the bill. Thank you. Jordan, if you go ahead.
Ms. Sarmiento, we're going to start again with you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, on behalf of our 45-member coalition, the Virginia Coalition for Your Rights, we fully support this bill.
Thank you. Mr. Mukherjee.
Yes, again, I'm with the Tenant Landlord Commission in Oxford County, and I support the bill. I think tenants are often confused on the application process, so transparency is good.
Thank you. Ms. Larkin.
I'm with Tidewater Tenants' Rights, and we support the bill.
Thank you. Ms. McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes. My name is Isabel McLean, and I'm the Research and Policy Analyst at Housing Opportunities Made Equal Virginia, and we strongly support this bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes the supportive testimony.
Thank you. There's been a motion to report, but I'd like to take up the testimony against the bill that's on virtually. Give everybody a fair shot. Just take up those now, please, Jordan.
We just have one more that's no position, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. With that, back to Delegate Price, if there are no questions from the committee. Final word.
Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion? Is there a motion to report? I'd like to take this bill by for the day. Is there a motion to do that?
Bye for the day.
All right. Without opposition, anyone in opposition to this bill going by for the day? All right. It'll go by for the day. Thank you, Delegate Price.
Sure.
All right. Next up, we have House Bill 840, Delegate Lopez.
Mr. Chairman, I have so many, you could go to some of the other folks who are going to be here.
All right. We'll call House Bill 160. That's Delegate Munden King. Please come forward and present your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I have an amendment that should be available.
It's been moved and seconded. The amendment, all those in favor of accepting, say aye. Any opposed? All right, amendment's before us.
Thank you
if
so
you
much.
could tell us what that does. Thank you.
Yes. And I apologize. I gave some folks a copy earlier, and it changed about 10 minutes later. But you have the current. You have the current version. So what the amendment does, it excludes those in the financial industry because they already have a high degree of background check just due to the industry that they're in. And so I'll explain.
I think this bill is a substitute, not just a line amendment. So I'd like to ask for a motion to move the substitute. All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the substitute, please say aye. Aye. All right, any opposed? Substitutes before us, and Delegate Munden King, please take your time and explain the underlying policy behind your idea and why you're bringing this bill, and then you can speak to the substitute. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair and members of the subcommittee. So House Bill 160 is a bill that is to protect Virginians living in apartments by requiring landlords to conduct background screening for employees who enter homes. The second portion of this bill is related to master keys and the processing and handling of them. And we have worked across stakeholders to really get this bill to a place that I think is a really great place for apartment owners as well as tenants and those in need of safety. And I'll just say, for anyone who has talked to me in the last 3 weeks, Delegate Corner is laughing, they've heard Mia's Law, Mia's Law, Mia's Law, Mia's Law. So this bill is actually related to the story of a beautiful and brilliant young woman named Mia Marcano, who unfortunately lost her life late last year because an apartment employee was able to use the master key to access her apartment and attack her. And like many folks, I prayed for her family and her safe return, but unfortunately, 8 days later, her body was found. And this is a simple way that is supported by many in the apartment industry and realty industry to protect Virginians living in apartments. And if appropriate, I'll speak to the substitute.
I think we understand what the bill does. Is there any questions from members of the committee at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion.
All right, there's a motion. Delegate Robinson.
I move to report the substitute.
Okay, we've got a motion to report the substitute and a second. All those in, that's a recorded vote. Well, clerk, if you please open the roll.
Delegate Carr.
Aye.
All right, that bill reports with a substitute 7-0. Delegate Munden King, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And Mr. Clerk, I was electronically disconnected before. I wasn't allowed to be a panelist, so I'd like to record my vote as no on H803.
Thank you, Delegate Carr. All right, next we'll take up Delegate Lopez's HB 840.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. When I was chair of Chesapeake Sub, dealing with all the water issues, we had a day, it was called Hodgepalooza for Rick Hodges. And
We got 28 bills left.
Exactly.
Let's do this.
6 of them are mine, so there you go. H. Bill 840 In Northern Virginia, Richmond, Newport News, and elsewhere across Virginia, we hear story after story after story about tenants living in terrible housing conditions. Most recently, the RTD here in Richmond did some incredible local reporting on the awful living conditions of tenants in the largest Latino neighborhood in the Richmond area. The reporters observed mold climbing the walls and covering air vents, broken or obsolete appliances, mouse droppings in living areas, kitchens, and mechanical closets, cockroaches, and damaged flooring, ceilings, and walls. The question then comes up, as it would be for the most anyone here today, why don't they do something about these absolutely awful conditions? The answer is simple. In many cases, they are afraid that if they take any action, that they may face some form of retaliation from the landlord, the biggest fear being that they may be punished with eviction. The prevailing law that prohibits landlords from increasing rent, decreasing services, or evicting tenants who complain about living conditions to building inspectors or judges simply doesn't provide enough protection for the tenants themselves. To prove that a landlord's action was retaliatory, a tenant must prove the landlord intended to retaliate. This requires the tenant to prove what the landlord was thinking when they took their action against the tenant, which is virtually impossible unless the landlord literally tells them what they were thinking. This bill seeks to address this issue by taking an approach that several other states have taken to protect tenants. It allows a judge to presume the landlord acted in retaliation if the landlord takes an adverse action against the tenant within 6 months of the tenant taking one of the protected actions. The landlord can still submit evidence to rebut the presumption by showing that they had a legitimate reason to take adverse action against the tenant. And the bill does not change the safe harbor provision of this law, which ensures that a landlord retains the right to evict a tenant for good cause. The people that the current law disproportionately affects are people of low-income backgrounds, black and brown Virginians of all stripes, immigrants, and new Americans. Too many people are afraid to take any sort of recourse on poor living conditions in their housing because landlords both hold so much power and receive the benefit of the doubt if they are accused of retaliatory action. This is simply unjust. I hope that it be the will of the committee to support the bill.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? HB 840. Okay, I'd like to do this. Anybody in person, please come forward to speak in favor of the bill. Is there anyone here in favor? Anyone against? Please come forward.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Tommy Herbert with the Virginia Apartment Management Association. We would ask you to please oppose the bill.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Noel Abedin, again from Prince William County. My family is a small-scale housing provider, and under this bill, so many hard decisions in the industry, such as deciding not to renew and enter into a new contract with a tenant, could be understood as retaliatory. We're just trying to do our job fairly, and this bill would put our family in a position where we're deemed guilty until proven innocent. So I would urge you to oppose this very dangerous policy. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. You ought to think about running for office, and then you come in here all the time. Good stuff. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Erin Barton with the Realtors. We oppose the bill as well.
Thank you. And for anyone that's on the virtual queue from here on out, if you have comments, I would ask you to please report those to hodspeak.house.virginia.gov. If you have a burning desire that you need to get out, please post it there. We will all be able to see your public comment. And with that, seeing no other speakers, Delegate Lopez, you have the final word.
Ms. Mara.
Christy Mara with the Poverty Law Center. I apologize. My colleague was online to speak, but I wanted to just bring to your attention now that the Poverty Law Center supports this bill for all the reasons that Delegate Lopez put the bill before you. We ask you to vote yes.
Thank you. Delegate Lopez, you have the final word.
I hope it will be the will of the committee to support the bill.
All right. Is there a motion?
Report.
It's been a move.
Substitute motion.
There's been a motion to report and a second, and a substitute motion.
Lay on the table.
Lay on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. This bill has been motioned and seconded to lay on the table. Clerk, if you would please open the roll for a vote.
Delegate Carr. Delegate Carr.
Sorry, no.
Okay, that bill's laid on the table on a vote 6-2. Delegate Lopez, please go ahead with 868.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Most jurisdictions in the United States read residential leases to include a warranty of habitability, either explicit or implied. This warranty holds landlords accountable for maintaining a habitable property, even if the lease itself does not specifically require the landlord make repairs. Virginia has a warranty of habitability written into the state code. Among many other provisions, it states that landlords shall comply with housing codes. Landlords must make repairs and maintain fit and habitable conditions, including the maintenance of electrical, plumbing, sanitary heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, and that landlords must prevent and eliminate mold. Unfortunately, however, the vast majority of residents in the Commonwealth are unaware of these provisions in the code, allowing many landlords to take advantage of their ignorance of the law in order to skirt their duty to provide fit and habitable conditions. Even worse, some landlords have argued that their duty to comply with these provisions can be waived during the rental process as long as they receive oral or written approval from the tenant. This is an area where, again, the ignorance of many of the renters is used against them by bad actors, and there are a few, but most are good actors, but there are some bad actors, in order to avoid their responsibility under the law. As many renters are not made aware of these provisions or their duties contained within, many don't know how to seek recourse for violations, or even that they may well be within their rights to seek any recourse at all. This legislation adds 2 simple fixes to the Virginia's warranty of habitability law in order to address these glaring issues. 1, landlords will now be prohibited from waiving their duties under Virginia's warranty of habitability law, either orally or in writing. And then 2, landlords will now be required to include the terms and conditions governing this duty in their rental lease agreement. Just 2 simple fixes to strengthen the rights of tenants and prevent them from being taken advantage of by the few unscrupulous bad actors. This legislation is about empowering any Virginian who rents in order to ensure that no landlord can skirt these duties imposed on them by existing law.
Thank you, Delegate Lopez. Is there any questions from members of the committee on this bill? Seeing none, those who are here to speak in favor of the bill, if you please come forward. Is there anyone? We have one. All right, nope. Is there anyone to speak against the bill? It's here in person. Seeing none, this committee operates by motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Delegate Bulba.
If I could just kind of make a comment, and I do see that nobody is coming out to speak against it, and I think it's because I'm trying to struggle with under what circumstances would it be okay to go ahead and waive maintenance of a fit premises. And so those are really the basics that we would go ahead and expect. But, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with you, then I would make a motion to report.
It's been motioned and seconded to report the bill. Clerk, open the roll. Listen, no.
Delegate Carr.
Carr votes aye.
Buddy. This bill fails to report on a vote of 4 to... Sorry, this bill fails to report on a vote of 4 to 3. Delegate Lopez, if you could go ahead with HB 882.
Yes. 882, the best bill of this block. The reason I say that is because I believe it has some form of peace in the valley. In Virginia, it's possible to be evicted without going through the usual eviction process. When a rental unit is condemned due to landlord's severe neglect and inability to properly care for that unit, the tenant can be removed. This effectively amounts to an eviction. Under Virginia law, landlords have a very clear responsibility to make repairs and other types of general maintenance to ensure that a building and its rental units are safe, healthy, and habitable. When landlords completely ignore their duty to keep a building and its rental unit safe, clean, and habitable, a rental unit can be condemned. And when a rental unit is condemned, a tenant has little to no legal recourse. What this bill does is provide a clear legal remedy for tenants who lose their homes through this form of eviction that is often the result of a landlord's extreme neglect of a property. This bill allows a tenant who is effectively evicted from their home because of health and safety reasons to file a case against his landlord for money damages equal to 3 months' rent and the amount of a security deposit paid by the tenant. It is very often the case that landlords don't return security deposits to their tenants when something like this happens. The mechanism by which a tenant could file a case against a landlord in this bill would be what's called a tenant's assertion. But it differs in 2 important ways from a typical tenant's assertion case filed against a landlord who was neglected to make 1 or 2 specific repairs. 1, if a tenant files a tenant's assertion after their rental unit is condemned because of the landlord's neglect of their responsibility to upkeep the property, there will be a presumption that the landlord breached their duty to keep the home in a safe and habitable condition. And 2, the tenant will not be required to pay anything into court escrow in order to maintain the case. Evictions are ugly and awful. life-changing events for families. Evictions are difficult at their core, but they absolutely should not happen because a landlord couldn't maintain the property, and none of the cost of that eviction should fall onto a tenant. I hope it's the will of the committee to support the bill.
Delegate Lopez, did you have a line amendment to take care of the force majeure clause or the acts of God, basically exempting any of those from the rebuttable presumption?
I believe I did have that line amendment. Ms. Binns, is that not already in there? I think it actually is still in there. All
right, any questions from the committee at this point on this bill?
Mr. Chair,
Delegate Brewer.
are those line amendments up on IHOD? I'm trying
No,
to.
they're not, but they can be quickly.
Mr. Chair,
Delegate Bulova.
would it be appropriate to pass by temporarily in order for the amendments to get in front of us?
Is there a motion to pass by temporarily?
So moved.
All right, is there a second? All those in favor? All right, this bill will go by temporarily.
Thank you.
Delegate Lopez, you have a couple others in the other block. HB, you've got more than a couple in the next block.
3.
If you take up 885 quickly, please.
Actually, because of some information I received just recently from some folks, including from the governor's office.
All right, we're looking for a motion to strike
this bill.
HB 885.
So moved.
All right, that's been moved and seconded. If you please open the roll to strike 885.
Delegate Carr,
Aye.
All right, that bill is stricken on a 7-0 vote. Delegate Lopez, if you'd go on with 909, please.
Thank you. Over the last year, complaints of immigration status being the catalyst for housing discrimination have been on the rise. Reports of deferred action for childhood arrivals, recipients, and others, undocumented individuals received denied rental applications or home offers have increased dramatically since the beginning of 2021. Immigrant communities are particularly vulnerable to housing discrimination, especially in the current political climate where, in some people's eyes, a renter's ethnic or racial identity may be almost synonymous with assumed political affiliations or ideological beliefs. Landlords across the country and the Commonwealth have been emboldened by anti-immigrant rhetoric to mistreat and evict immigrant tenants for no reason but their national origin or immigration status. Housing is one of the most fundamental of human necessities, and I believe if foreign-born Virginians don't feel comfortable dealing with landlords who may seek to harm or take advantage of them due to their immigration status, many will be forced into unsafe, unhealthy, and crowded living conditions. We should not tolerate any example of discrimination that would treat hundreds of thousands of Virginians as a second class, potentially subject to harsh and unpunishable treatment by landlords who might take advantage of them. This legislation addresses this issue by fixing a glaring omission in Virginia's Residential Landlord and Tenant Act. This bill would add a prohibition on discrimination based on immigration for the first time. The federal government has prohibited discrimination based on national origin for decades. Indeed, the Virginia Code already prohibits national origin discrimination in the Fair Housing Code sections of the code. But the Fair Housing law only protects Virginians as they search for housing. Adding this protection into the Residential Landlord and Tenant Act extends these protections to Virginians after they've signed the lease and become tenants.
Thank you, Delegate Lopez. Are there any questions from the committee?
I have a question.
Delegate Murphy.
Delegate Lopez, are they allowed to ask their status? Is there a legal thing that prevents it, or they're allowed to ask that?
I don't believe that. Let me phone a friend. Ms. Merritt, do you know that? I don't want to give you the incorrect answer. Are they allowed to ask the immigration status of someone?
The Christy Mayer with the Virginia Poverty Law Center. The Virginia Fair Housing Act and the Federal Fair Housing Act both prohibit discrimination on the basis of national origin, and any treatment of someone who any different treatment or differential treatment of an applicant because of their national origin would be prohibited under those laws. Therefore, a question about immigration status would probably be suspect. It wouldn't in and of itself be unlawful, but it would raise questions about the reason for that. If the reason for that was to provide less to someone from with a particular national origin, that would be unlawful.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, those in favor that are here to speak, please come forward. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak against this bill? All right, seeing none, committee operates by motion. Oh, sorry, please come forward.
Erin Barton with the Realtors. We just want to point out, as has already been stated, that this specific language is already in the state fair housing law, and all of the property managers are required to follow that law.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion
Go ahead.
to please lay this bill 909 on the table.
There's been a motion to lay this bill on the table and a second. Clerk, if you will please open the roll for a vote.
Delegate Carr,
No,
All right, Delegate Lopez, I believe that's it. Do you have any other bills?
1159.
1159. Please go ahead.
Virginia Housing Trust Fund has become the Commonwealth's most critical tool in creating and preserving affordable housing in rural and urban communities across Virginia. At the height of the COVID pandemic, the Housing Trust Fund was also serving as a crucial backstop in Virginia's rent and mortgage relief efforts that kept thousands of Virginians in their homes. We are just starting to see the significant dividends paid by our state's investment in affordable housing, but as Virginians work to recover from the effects of the ongoing pandemic, the General Assembly should reinforce the commitment of the Housing Trust Fund to serving those most in need. Many of the families that have benefited the most from projects funded by the Housing Trust Fund are very low-income households, largely supported by low-wage essential jobs, childcare, health aid, grocery store clerks, service workers. A good many of these households are SSI or Social Security dependent. Significant funding is needed beyond the low-income housing tax credit to create units affordable to households that make 30% of the area median income, AMI. For many years, Virginia's low-income housing tax credit program, administered by VHDA and now by Virginia Housing, was focused almost exclusively on 60% AMI units. While more flexibility has been added recently, previously funded projects are still governed by old rules. The cost to bridge the gap between 60% AMI unit and a 30% AMI unit at the time of construction or refinancing is very high and will not be penciled into the deal using any existing source of federal or state funding. My hometown of Arlington has used local funding to achieve a few units, but however, households at 30% AMI or lower are often faced with traumatic series of financial trade-offs, like scrimping on food and medicine, traveling for hours on buses and public transit, doubling up with another household, or waiting years and years to get off the wait list for a housing choice voucher or a locally provided housing subsidy. Growing the inventory of 30% AMI units will help stabilize households, reduce apartment overcrowding, and lessen the pressure on state and or local programs and housing subsidies. Federal funding from the American Rescue Plan gives Virginia a once-in-a-generation opportunity to make strategic investments that support vulnerable households. Once these 30% AMI units are created, jurisdictions across the Commonwealth will be able to more adequately meet the needs of their low-income residents through a better aligned inventory of affordable housing. This bill would convene a DHCD work group to determine the best way to use loans, grants, or non-recourse funding from the Housing Trust Fund to support jurisdictions who need to better align their committed affordable housing stock with a number of very low-income households in their community. I think it's a common sense measure intended to help lower-income families across the Commonwealth. I hope you'll support the bill.
Thank you, Delegate Lopez. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, anyone here to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone here to speak against the bill? All right. This committee operates by motion.
Move to report.
This is a appropriation. We've got a note from appropriations to send this upstairs. So thank you. Is there a second? All right. It's been moved to report and refer to appropriations HB 1159. Clerk, if you please open the roll. Members, record your vote.
Delegate Carr,
aye.
All right, this bill reports 8-0. Thank you, Delegate Lopez. And if you come see me on the one that went by temporarily.
We'll come back right at the end of the block.
Thank you. Let's see. We have Delegate Maldonado, HB 893. Please come forward and present your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, members of the subcommittee. Before we get started, I believe council has a substitute. If we could.
Substitute's been moved. Is there a second? Okay. There's been a motion and second to accept the substitute. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? the substitute's before us, and since none of us have seen the substitute, if you would please explain what it does. Delegate Maldonado.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The substitute actually just clarifies the language to make it clear that the notice timeline happens 30 days prior to the deadline to give notice of renewal or not. It also helps to make sure that we clarify that it aligns it with current code language that includes that it is only applicable to those who are owners of more than 4 dwellings and or have more than 10% interest, either individually or through a business entity.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the bill? Still trying to pull up the substitute language, but we'll get it soon. It's internet, not you guys.
If it's helpful, I also have printed copies of the substitute.
I'd love a copy.
Back to the old-fashioned way. Here. I'll do this side. That side.
We'll go ahead and invite public testimony. Those in favor, please come forward.
Mr. Chair, Erin Barton with the Realtors. We'd like to thank the delegate for working with us to clarify this language, and we do support the substitute language. I'm happy to answer any questions about it as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Bisma Ahmed with the Apartment and Office Building Association and the Virginia Apartment Management Association. We thank the delegate for working with us, and we support the bill.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Christy Mara with the Virginia Poverty Law Center, and we support the bill.
Brian Cosley with Virginia Housing Alliance. Our members support the bill.
Is anyone here to speak in opposition to the bill? All right. Let's see. Delegate, I'm going to ask that this bill go by for the day, and I'm going to review the substitute language and make sure that it's proper. I'd like a motion to do that. All right, there's been a motion that this go by for the day. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, this bill will go by for the day. Thank you, Delegate Maldonado.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, that's the first block. We're going to move into the second block. We'll take a break in a little bit, but Delegate McQuinn, if you would please come forward and present your bill.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I started out at 7 o'clock this morning. I said it was cruel and unusual punishment, and now I realize.
All right, we've got.
What time is it? Still cruel and unusual punishment.
We've got HB 1227. Delegate McQuinn.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this particular bill, HB 1227, is a bill that's asking that the mayor and office of the mayor, as well as city council, be addition to the Richmond Redevelopment Housing Authority Board. They're asking to expand opportunities to include individuals who are now appointed by the city. They are individuals appointed by the city council and all, but they desire to have someone from city council represented, as well as someone from the mayor's office. They think that this will strengthen the work that is being done in terms of public-private partnership for funding and building, and as they move forward to develop a new mixed income development. And so they're asking for this in expectation of a much stronger bond as they move forward in helping to develop, additional housing in the city of Richmond. RRHA is currently governed by a 9-member board of the commissioners, appointed by the city council. Their role and responsibility including establishing priorities and policy advocacy and review and approval of contracts. And so basically, it's just asking that there be these additions that would be added to this particular commission.
Delegate McQuinn, I have a question. So does a mayor or a city council member vote to appropriate money to housing development authorities in Virginia?
The city does. And we have someone here who can come and speak to all of that. Yes.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee at this point? Delegate Coiner.
I had a question. With the addition, it looks as though you could already vote to change your charter to allow for the makeup of the commission if you wanted to. So if you wanted to, you could ask for a charter change in order to do this.
Go ahead.
As you know, Mr. Chairman, Delegate Corner.
I'm sorry, sir. Could you state your name and who you represent?
Jordan, Advantage Strategies, representing the city. As you know, Delegate Corner, the charter change process is a little more convoluted, and for that reason, the city wanted to move forward in this rather than go through the whole charter change process, which with Richmond's unique form of government can get pretty convoluted, to say the least.
Thank you. Anyone here to speak in favor of this bill?
I am.
Thank you. Got that. Anyone here to speak in opposition of the bill? Please come forward.
Hey, dude.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Tyler Craddock. I represent the Virginia Association of Housing Community Development Officials, VOCDO, right, the housing authorities themselves. We have some concerns about this bill. We think that Virginia law already provides a fairly balanced approach to the relationship between a housing authority and in this case, it would be the city government, but of course this is general law, so it could be a county, a town housing authority, such as we have in Southwest Virginia, et cetera. So it's important to remember that the governing body of a locality, whether it's a city council, a county board of supervisors, a town council, they already have the power with housing authorities over their construction plans, their funding. Most things you would want to do, you all just pass legislation out of here that a name change would require their approval. Also, housing authorities, commissioners can be removed by a vote of the governing body. There's concern that's been expressed to me by our members that if you start adding governing body members, to that you're going to shift that balance in a way that it's going to have the unintended consequence of negatively affecting relationships on that board. Because these are the folks who are voting on your budget, they're voting on your reappointment. So, with that said, we would ask you gently to oppose this. We understand what the delegate's trying to do with it and where she's coming from, and so it's some very valid reasons that they're bringing this forward, but we unfortunately have to oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in opposition to the bill? All right.
Mr. Chairman, I had a couple of other things I was going to say before you called for opposition. Initially came up just to answer the question.
Go ahead.
Quickly. The scale of other housing authorities in Virginia is minuscule compared to one in Richmond. Richmond operates over 4,000 housing units with 10,000 residents through its housing development authority. Most of those are concentrated in 6 large pockets of poverty, extreme poverty, and the city and the housing authority are making a huge effort to try to deconcentrate those through redeveloping each of those into a mixed income community involving hundreds of millions of dollars. For these reasons, the council and the mayor believe that they need a closer cooperation with the housing authority and a little bit more control over the direction of this to bring it in line with the debt capacity of the authority and the plan and the city's master plans for these communities. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions from the committee members? Right. Delegate McQuinn, you have the final word.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just think that, and I know that they're the opposition that came forward, but I have lived in the city, I've served on the city council, and I have, from a distance, watched the sort of the working of our RHA city council and the mayor. And so I think that this would be an asset into helping to move things forward a lot smoother than they have been in the past. And so I would hope that we could support this effort.
I hope you continue to work on that. Thank you, Delegate McQuinn. This committee operates by motion.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to report. Clerk, if you please open the roll.
Delegate Carr. Delegate Carr.
Yes. 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 Okay.
Thank you, Delegate Carr. This bill fails to report on a 4-3 vote. Thank you, Delegate McQuinn.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. I thought Delegate Carr said 3 times yes, so I thought it would ask.
You got to watch those delegates from
Thank you.
Richmond.
Have a good evening.
All right, thank you. Delegate Lopez, please come forward. You have 882.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving us an opportunity to take it by temporarily.
Did you get the line amendments on the
Yes.
act of God?
Yes.
Okay. Can we hear
if you
those?
Go to line 30 of that of 882 and add the line at the end of, or it should read, or his agent's refusal or failure to remember a condition which he was served a condemnation notice, comma, unless that condition was caused by force majeure or an act of God.
Okay, we need to strike force majeure and just leave act of God. Is that clear, counsel? All right, and so we did have a rule when we started this committee out that any of these major surgeries needed to be to the clerk at least a day ahead of time. Delegate Lopez, we like this bill. We're going to pass this by and work on this between now and the next meeting. If we could get a motion to do that.
Will there be another meeting?
Yeah, there's a meeting next Thursday. Motion to pass by. Is there a second? Second. All right. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, the bill goes by for the day. Thank you, Delegate Lopez. Delegate Keem, please come forward. You have
House Bill 702. I'll make this really
702. Go ahead.
First of all, Mr. Benz has a substitute, and don't let the size of the substitute scare you.
Second. Substitute's been moved and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Delegate Keem, when did you get the substitute in?
Like a week and a half ago.
All right, pass the rule. Go ahead and tell us what the substitute does.
Mr. Chair, members, no, it's actually only been a week. As you know, we started this bill as a way to address a concern that the town of Vienna had about some of the new developments going on with new homeowners. The idea is to make sure that the new homeowners understand exactly the obligations and responsibilities in terms of what they can and can't do once they buy the house in terms of covering the lots. What we first started to do with this as a disclosure, which is why it's only a 3-line sentence. What we realized is there's a better way to do this by adding it in a different part of the code, which is why the code section is a lot longer, but the changes are actually what we'd like to accomplish. And if there was a valley in the town of Vienna, there would be peace there now, because there is peace in the valley. And I have the town folks here as well as the realtor folks here who could vouch for that.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, those are here to speak in favor of the bill, if you please come forward.
Good afternoon. I'm Mayor Linda Colbert, Town of Vienna.
Good evening, Chairman Wampler. I'm Steve Briley, the town attorney for the town of Vienna. I want to thank Delegate Keem for bringing this bill and facilitating it. As the good delegate represented, originally this started out as an affirmative disclosure of a seller on property would have to disclose certain information about their property in addition to the current disclosures. In speaking with the real estate folks, it was determined that perhaps the better place to put this kind of language, it was in the due diligence provisions, which is now before the subcommittee. What this does is it reminds purchasers that they really need to look at their plats to make sure that their lot coverage doesn't meet the current max. If it does, then they're not going to be able to build in the future. Why is that a problem? As we've had countless teardowns in Northern Virginia, especially in the town of Vienna, and the builders build to the max pretty much, and they go to closing and people come in, they want to add additional features, which is fine, but they don't realize that they don't have any lot coverage, and with stormwater management, quality issues, Chesapeake requirements, the town has no leverage on that, and it's not something they can go to the BZA and get a variance for. So this raises a flag for people that they need to check before they sign on the dotted line. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Aaron Barton with the Realtors. Just want to thank the delegate for working with us, taking our questions and concerns into account, and we do support the bill as written, the substitute.
Thank you. And you've seen the substitute?
Yeah, they wrote it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
So yes.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
All right.
No, Ms. Benz wrote it, but with input from all the stakeholders.
Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the bill? It's okay. All right. The substitute is before us now on LIS and IHOD. If you would give us just a second to review the substitute, and if you want to talk to us about anything else, you're welcome to do that while we read.
Well, yeah, my stand-up routine starts 7 p.m. at... All right, I'm giving up.
Can you tell me a joke that would make me laugh and also make me cry?
Can I wait till the vote's done, and then I'll tell you all, tell you all the jokes you want to hear? But let's cast the vote first.
Are there any questions from members of the subcommittee on the substitute?
I just have, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Delegate Coiner.
So just to clarify, we went from imposing shall on a seller to it becoming part of a basically the owner stating, I make no representation, and you should go look for yourself.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, Delegate. That's the art of the compromise.
Okay.
All right. Without any other questions, this committee operates by motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to report the substitute.
There's been a motion to report the substitute. There's a second. Clerk, if you would please open the roll.
Delegate Carr.
Aye.
I only got one.
All right. That bill reports with a substitute 7-0. Thank you.
Mr. Chair. I appreciate it, and thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I want to hear the joke now.
No, we're moving on. We're moving on here. All right, what we're going to do now is there's been a request by several patrons. We're going to strike HB 532, and I need a motion.
We can do in a block here, the two of them.
Okay, we have two, so we're going to, I'm looking for a motion to strike 532 and 1062 in a block. All right, those two have been moved and seconded to strike. Clerk, if you would please open the roll when you're ready for a recorded vote.
Carr votes aye.
All right, those bills are stricken from the docket 7-0. And we also have a request of the patron, Delegate Corey, that House Bill 701 go by for the day, and I'd like a motion. All right, it's been in motion. Is there a second? There's a second. All those in favor of 701 going by for the day, please say aye. Any opposed? That bill goes by for the day. We're going to take a short 5-minute break, and we will be right back. Thank you. This committee will be at ease. call this meeting back to order. Let everybody find their seats. All right, we're going to take up 2 revenue bills, and then subcommittee number 2 is going to adjourn for the day, and the remainder of the bills will be taken up at next Thursday's meeting. We have another subcommittee that needs to meet and is going to have a lengthy docket there. And so with that, let's see, Delegate Krizik, you've stricken one of your bills, which was
1062.
Okay, and then you have 1065, which you'd like to present now.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and I have a substitute for this bill, and I'll discuss what we're doing here, why we struck that other one real quickly.
All right, did that substitute make it in 24 hours ago?
The council has the substitute.
Did it make it in?
Yeah.
24, okay. Council, all right, let's see, is there a motion on the substitute? All right, the substitute's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, substitutes before us. Delegate Krizik, if you could tell us what your bill does.
So rather than have these 2 bills that get into this section of the code regarding manufactured homes and manufactured home parks, mobile homes, it's this substitute now is just a Section 1 bill that would it would transform the bill into a Section 1. And the heart of this bill is that the Department of Housing and Community Development will convene a stakeholder group consisting of the manufactured home park nonprofits and for-profit owners, the residents, the legal aid attorneys that represent them, and associations representing the interests of the manufactured home park owners and other related stakeholders and attorneys knowledgeable in the Virginia Manufactured Home Lot Rental Act. So it's just to work together to come up this summer with some to update this section of the code, and rather for us to do this kind of death by 1,000 cuts each year, coming up with 1 or 2 little things, I think this is really important. I mean, manufactured homes make up about 5.5% of the Virginia housing market, 184,000 units across the state. So it's a big thing. And we have Peace in the Valley. We have everybody's help to craft this, and if you want to hear from Tyler,
are there any
or
questions
Randy.
for the delegate from the members of the committee? Seeing none, those who are here to speak in favor of the bill, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Tyler Craddock on behalf of Manufactured Housing Communities of Virginia, we appreciate the opportunity to have worked with Delegate Krizik on this. We strongly support this, and we support the collaborative approach that's envisioned in here so that we can get the requisite stakeholders to the table and hopefully over the course of the spring, summer, and fall turn out a good work product for your consideration next year.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Christy Marrow with the Virginia Poverty Law Center. We also strongly support this. We look forward to working with Delegate Krizik and all the stakeholders to really produce something wonderful in this area to bring to you next year.
I know it's going to be wonderful. Next,
wonderful.
Please, thank you.
I have to raise this up. Randy Grumbine representing the Virginia Manufactured and Modular Housing Association. We want to thank the delegate for bringing the bill and working with us, and we recognize that there's a lot of challenges in manufactured home communities. It's a lot of times multiple languages spoken, so those are some of the tasks we want to take on and address through the help of DHCD and the other stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this Section 1 bill with the DHCD study?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion.
There's a motion. What's the motion?
Move to report.
Second.
All right,
The substitute.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we report the substitute. All those please, members, please cast your votes.
Delegate Carr.
Aye.
This bill reports 8-0 with the substitute. Delegate Krizik, you got lucky and snuck one that wasn't a revenue bill past me, but congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it.
All right, Delegate Simons, if you could come up and present House Bill 258.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will try to be brief because the committee did hear this bill a few weeks ago. But just to remind you, HB 258 creates an online human trafficking course for hotels and their employees. To address some of the concerns from the last committee meeting, we found that there is
a substitute on this bill?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to move the.
All right. Substitute's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of adopting the substitute, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, substitute's before us. Thank you, Delegate Simons. Please tell us what the substitute does.
So I worked with the Hospitality Association to make sure that it would be crystal clear that the alternative training opportunities would be approved quickly. So the substitute you have before you requires DCJS to approve or disapprove the training that the hotel employees would need to do within 60 days. And this amendment is just designed to give the hotel industry more certainty. I have answers to some of the questions that were raised last time as well. Should I go into those?
We'll see if there's any questions from the committee. Do any committee members have a question of the delegate?
Mr. Chair, I just have a motion at the proper time.
Thank you, Delegate Brewer. Go ahead with your motion.
Move to report.
This does have a note to refer this to appropriation, so the appropriate motion would be...
I'll amend my motion, Mr. Chair. Move to report and refer to appropriations.
Okay. There's been a motion to report and refer to appropriations with a second. Clerk, if you could please open the roll. Excuse me, with the substitute. Thank you.
Delegate Carr. You're muted.
Pesky mute button.
Carr votes yay.
All right. Delegate Carr votes yay. That means this bill reports and refers with a substitute to appropriations on an 8-0 vote. Thank you, Delegate Simons. And with a motion, we will adjourn subcommittee number 2. All right. Subcommittee number 1 coming up after this.